and Natalia for start our presentation.
Thank you, Emilia. Thank you for the opening remarks, and thank you everybody for connecting this morning and listening to us as we present this tax update specifically thought about for Chinese companies doing business in Colombia. I think we are very grateful to have you here, and we expect the content we're going to be navigating through today is of interest, and you have a number of takeaways, hopefully, as you understand what we're going to discuss today. Hong Kong is always a key priority for Chinese companies doing business in Colombia. We all know that. And a little bit of background here, in 2013, almost 9 years ago, Colombia, for the first time, enacted a blacklist. For the first time ever, Hong Kong was part of that blacklisting. Back then, the reasons for Hong Kong and other jurisdictions to be blacklisted were pretty much Colombia has no way to exchange tax information with Hong Kong. Hong Kong may not be willing to exchange tax information with Colombia. Colombia then set a standard. Whatever jurisdiction where Colombia does not have the ability to exchange information with, among other reasons, will be blacklisted. That was the reason why Hong Kong came on the list in 2013. Being on the blacklist has a number of consequences. I'm just going to go through them real quick for reference. One key consequence is if there is a transaction with Hong Kong, with a Hong Kong vendor, where we are supposed to withhold tax as a matter of Colombian tax law, then we don't use the standard rate, typically 20%. We don't. We use the highest rate for withholding tax. And beginning 2022, the highest rate is 35%. This is critical to many, hopefully all of you listening, because for some time there was a confusion like, if we deal with Hong Kong, we need to withhold tax, whether we like it or not, at the highest rate. Technically, that's not correct. We only withhold tax if the transaction is subject to withholding tax as a matter of law. Not many things are subject to withholding tax. Imports of products, they're not subject to withholding tax, and the fact we buy from Hong Kong does not mean we need to withhold tax. But think about services. Some of the services we buy from outside Colombia, say from Hong Kong, get taxed, and then the standard rate we use for other jurisdictions is 20%. However, if we do it with Hong Kong, there is a penalization that we need to use the highest rate. The other consequence is that if we have a transaction with Hong Kong, which for us in Colombia creates a cost or an expense that we want to use for tax purposes, then we need to prepare transfer pricing documentation, even if the party we're dealing with in Hong Kong is not related. Even if it is unrelated, we need to do transfer pricing documentation. And for related parties, we need to demonstrate that whoever is selling things to us from Hong Kong, that vendor has the infrastructure, the resources, functions, takes the risk, etc., through what we call a functional analysis. So if you think about it, contracting with a party in Hong Kong creates additional burden on companies here. And that's the whole thing about Hong Kong being blacklisted. They wanted to make it tax costly to deal with Hong Kong back in 2013. In 2018, Hong Kong joined the Multilateral Convention for mutual tax assistance. Colombia was a member like 4 years ago, 4 years before 2014. But Hong Kong joined that framework in 2018. And then 1 year later, our tax office issued a regulation saying, I certify that Hong Kong is exchanging information with Colombia, that we have an instrument to be able to send information to Hong Kong or receive information from Hong Kong. That happened in 2019. That was supposed to be the beginning of the removal of Hong Kong from the blacklist, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen in 2019. Most recently, early 2022, uh, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange was included on the list of recognized stock exchanges for Colombian tax purposes. So that recognition means that Colombia is happy with stock exchanges in the US, in London, many jurisdictions, now Hong Kong there, as a recognizable and trustworthy stock exchange. This raises the question, if Colombia is moving into treating Hong Kong differently, why is still Hong Kong blacklisted? That's the key question today on the table. And and we have let the government know that this is an inconsistency, and that they should revisit Hong Kong blacklisting and perhaps thinking seriously now about removing Hong Kong from the blacklist. I know, we know this is important for Chinese companies, also for Colombian entrepreneurs that go to China, buy product, import into Colombia, and distribute locally. Many things manufactured in China. China is the manufacturing plant of the world. We all know that. And Hong Kong is the door to and from China. So today the status is Hong Kong remains blacklisted. However, there are, as far as we know, some efforts underway to emphasize to the government, you have the framework, you certify Hong Kong really exchange information with Colombia. Now you're saying the Hong Kong stock exchange is a recognizable stock exchange. Well, you should take a step forward and remove Hong Kong from the blacklist. We're hoping that will happen in 2022. No guarantee there, but we're hoping that will be the case in 2022 now that Hong Kong is treated differently for many purposes. Before moving on to the next topic, Natalia will take the lead. I just wanted to remind everybody that the reason why this is happening is because Colombia has an interest to be able to effectively receive and provide tax information to other countries or from other countries. It's part of the tax avoidance program Colombia and many countries have put into place before, and that's the whole reason the blacklist was enacted in 2013. Only once the blacklist has been revised, that happened in 2014. Ever since, no changes, and we believe it's time for changes again. Hopefully, there will be a revised list in 2022. We'll see. Time will tell. So this is pretty much what I wanted to say on Hong Kong, everybody. Again, happy to take questions as we come to the Q&A session at the end of the session this morning. Thank you, and Natalia, over to you.
Thank you, Carlos Miguel. Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Natalia Arango. I'm a lawyer and I'm part of the tax and legal practice here in PwC Colombia. Since January of this year, the treaties with Italy and France came in force, came into effect. However, please note that in the case of France, even if the treaty came into effect on January 1st of this year, the provisions, including withholding taxes relief, will be effective only until next year. So we only have this tax relief in the payments that Colombian companies are doing to France until next year. In the case of Italy, the treaty came into effect this year, and we already have a withholding tax relief on certain payments. such as technical services, consulting services, management fees, which are now, which will not be subject to withholding taxes now, thanks to this treaty with Italy. And in the case of Spain, please note that the most favored nation clause that the treaty with UK, between Colombia and UK, has this most favored nation that should be impacting as well the treaty between Colombia and Spain. This means that a tax relief on royalty payments should be applying right now between Colombia and Spain. However, we have a tax authority ruling that is adverse to this position. Carlos Miguel, I'm not sure if you want to comment something else in this topic.
Yeah, Natalia, thank you. We don't have a tax treaty with China, and I don't see any tax treaty on the pipeline with China either. So this raises the question how Chinese companies should come to Colombia through Hong Kong, directly from China mainland, other jurisdictions, etc. The treaty network is growing, and we know Chinese companies are operating in many countries in the world. So revisiting your structure, understanding how you come to Colombia, and perhaps using some of the tax treaties we have currently into place may be a good idea. For those of you already familiar with Colombia, you already know that in Colombia, tax changes happen real frequent, like every 2.5 years on average, tax changes. So if you think about a tax jurisdiction, a tax-free jurisdiction to hold Colombia or to sell things into Colombia, you're going to get some sense of stability because changing a tax treaty is not that easy. There has to be an agreement and negotiation with the other country. So the message as PwC we have for all of you is think about your structure. Colombia has dividend taxes. Colombia imposes withholding taxes on cross-border payments, etc. Think about how you are structuring those transactions today. Think about what kind of presence you have in any of the countries we have tax treaties with, and perhaps revisit the point and see whether you can create efficiencies from that perspective. Today's landscape is so much different from the past. It's not only about coming to Spain, Italy, Korea, UK, and just creating a company and take it from there. You have to have substance. You need to have a sound presence in the jurisdictions to be able to be safe. But every international company, in our experience, should revisit the structuring into Colombia and see what opportunities are out there for some tax relief under the tax relief network. Thank you, Natalia, for letting me the chance to speak a little bit more.
Thank you. According to a recent decree that was issued last year, Colombian entities that are making payments to companies or individuals located in a preferential tax regime should apply a withholding tax of 35% as long as the payment is considered Colombian source income for the recipient. Please note that this 35% rate is applicable for 2022. And in addition, the Colombian companies that are making payments to this kind of jurisdictions should apply or comply with the transfer pricing regime. This is something that Carlos Miguel were talking about before. The implications are the same of making transactions with blacklisted jurisdictions. In this case, we are referring to preferential tax regimes or low or null tax regimes. So who are the persons or entities that are located in these preferential tax regimes? Here we have in the right side of the slide, you can see two steps to confirm if this entity is located or not for Colombian tax purposes in a preferential tax regime. So the first step is to look into the OECD list of harmful tax practices. Please note that this list is not about countries. You can find there like regimes. For example, in the case of China, you can find several regimes that are currently applying in China and are part of this OECD list. So if the recipient of the payment from Colombia is located in one of those regimes that are mentioned in this list, we should move forward to the second step, that is to check if this regime meets at least two of the requirements that are set for in the Colombian tax code. Those requirements are low nominal rates on income, lack of effective exchange of information, lack of transparency, non-existence of substantial local presence, or that the regimes are available only for non-residents. So if the regime meets at least two of these requirements, then we will be talking about a preferential tax regime, and in that case, the Colombian company should apply the withholding tax and also comply with the transfer pricing regime. Carlos Miguel, do you have any additional comment here?
No, thank you.
Okay, this is the next topic, the ultimate beneficial ownership rules. The information of each of the final beneficiaries must be indicated in RUP. By the initial in Spanish, RUP means a registry that is that must be now fulfilled before the tax authority. This information must be provided through the electronic system of the tax authority. And in case of any modification of the initial information that is provided, this should be updated in this new registry. It is important also to note that the support of the information and the due diligence performed must be kept for a period of 5 years. And there is some risk of penalties if the company or the Colombian entity does not fulfill with this obligation. We will see later what kind of penalties will apply.
Just if I may, Natalia, just real quick, these ultimate beneficial ownership rules are not only new to Colombia. In many other jurisdictions, this is happening. The bottom line being the interest of every country to understand who is really behind the ownership of operations, companies, etc. And Colombia is trying to follow the international standards to create like a whole framework for the disclosure of this information. So this is pretty fresh information, Natalia is explaining. And we expect this will be a requirement from now on for the years to come. I don't think this will change unless, to get improvements into place, but not that they are going to take it away. So this is important. And it is also a new compliance requirement that you should put on your compliance map to understand how this works, timing, etc. So over to you, Natalia.
Thanks. So in this slide, you can see who is a final beneficial owner according to Colombian legislation. We are talking about number one is a individual or a natural person who holds directly or indirectly at least 5% or more of the capital. Number two is when no one meets the first requirement, then you should look into number two, which is an individual. Sorry, here's a mistake. It's actually number three is actually number two. You should identify any individual that that jointly or individually controls this legal person in other way that is not holding more than 5% of the capital of the Colombian entity. And if no one meets the two previous requirements, then the Colombian entity should identify the legal representative or another person that has authority in relation to the management of the Colombian entity. Here you can see what kind of entities are compelled what kind of entities should compel with this new obligation. We are not talking about national entities or Colombian entities. We are also talking about, for example, trust or incorporated structures that are management from Colombia. In the bottom of this slide, you can see that this requirement does not apply to public entities or agencies and 100% public nature corporations or embassies or diplomatic missions. Okay, this is the deadline to provide the information in this new registry before the tax authority. The deadline is September 30 of this year for legal entities that were incorporated or created before January 15 of this year. Those that have been incorporated or created after this date must report the information no later than 2 months after register in the root. Also, any update to the initial information must be made within the month following of the change that must be reported. There are tax penalties if the companies or the Colombian entities does not fulfill with these obligations. We are, from a tax perspective, we are talking about a penalty that can goes up to $150,000. Carlos Miguel, do you want to add something about this topic?
Yes, there is plenty of time to provide the information, September 30. I think 2 extra points here. One is whenever you're ready to make the initial reporting, you have to report the beneficial ownership data as of the date you use to report. So if say the day you are going to go into the platform to report is June the 30th, uh, then you need to report the beneficial ownership information as of June the 30th. And secondly, there is some guidance. The government will issue some guidance before June, I think, with additional details on how to do the due diligence. Because to understand who your beneficial ownership is, you have to do some diligence through the organization and take some steps. That's the guidance the government should be releasing sometime before June. And therefore, I think waiting a little bit to make the report may be important, you know, because the guidance should help clarify many questions, you know, people or reporting entities may have. So, important item, beneficial ownership rules now fully in place. Deadlines are running. Plenty of time to comply, but worth preparing in advance, understanding how this process works, and trying to replicate what other beneficial ownership information your organizations are reporting to other countries, because in certain ways, in many ways, this is the same concept many jurisdictions are adopting. Thank you, Natalia.
This is the last item in our presentation. This is a potential withholding tax changes. This is not yet a decree, but we already know the draft of this decree that the government is reviewing. And the purpose of this decree is to increase the rates of self-withholding. This will imply you know, an impact for the cash flow of Colombian companies. So again, it's not yet a decree, but probably it will be very soon. Carlos Miguel, any additional comments here?
Thank you, Natalia. Those of you familiar with the Colombian tax system know every month you remit like taxes in advance to your annual income tax liability. Either your customers withhold tax from you, and you also self-withhold and remit tax. It's the way the government collects in advance from your organizations. And then because the good economic results that the country and many industries had in 2021, and the expectation that 2022 will be a good year, they are proposing to raise the self-withholding tax a little bit. What this means is more cash given to the government every month. And if you think about your organization, many of you may have seen that year by year, you end up with like a tax receivable, un saldo a favor. You have remitted more taxes, your customers have withheld more tax than you really had to pay for the year. And these tax receivables are refundable upon request. And this will create some additional pressure on your cash and perhaps the receivables for now on, if this regulation is enacted, that we think will be enacted in the next following weeks. The income tax filing season is now starting for 2022. Your organizations will need to file tax returns in April, so pretty soon, and then you'll see again tax refunds or tax receivables on your tax returns. You have like 2 or 3 choices there when you have a tax receivable. One is do nothing and carry that forward into the next year. There's no limitation in terms of how many years you can carry forward your receipt. So you can carry that forward for years and years, no time limitation. The downside to that is if your profitability is not uh, sufficient to create sufficient tax to absorb the receivable, then year by year the tax receivable will grow and grow and grow, and your balance sheet will show a big asset like the government owes me money. The more years you wait to claim the refund, the more difficult the processing will be because the government will audit you. You know, locating the information for 4, 5, 6 years ago is not easy. People leave companies. The historical knowledge sometimes is lost, etc., etc. So that's one option, but think about what possibilities you may have going forward to recover or to absorb that receivable against a growing income tax to pay. It's all about your profitability. The second option is, well, I'm going to do something. I know that my profitability will be like stable. I will not have sufficient tax to pay to absorb all these taxes I am withheld by my customers, or I self-withhold every month on my revenue. So I'm just going to claim the refund. And then claiming the refund has certain mechanics. The system in Colombia works. Many of you perhaps have already gone through that process. They're not going to give you the money overnight. They're not going to make it easy for you, but the system works. It's just a matter of being prepared, like having good tax returns because they're going to audit you, having the right advisor next to you to help you navigate the process, and then be patient. The process may take 50 working days. That's like 3 months. Sometimes the tax office uses additional terms to audit the tax return, 90 days. And along the way, uh, it's critical that you have the ability to turn information over to the tax office. They will appear and they will show up in a rush, like we need this info for tomorrow, next 2 days, and they will put some pressure on you to deliver information and see how appropriate your tax return is. So it's it's an interesting process claiming money back from the government, and perhaps the message to all of you is don't build up receivables unless you know your profitability will give you sufficient tax to absorb all those withholding taxes. Otherwise, uh, claim your tax refunds every year, maybe every 2 years, no, not beyond 2 years, to make the process easier, and perhaps more smoothly. In Colombia, the tax office, whenever they approve the refund, they don't give you the cash right away. They give you a security, a paper for the face value they approved. In that security, you can use it as to pay other taxes you need to pay, the withholding tax every month, the VAT. You have 1 year to use the security, just 1 year, or you can sell the security to other taxpayers. And this happens very often, that you get the approval, you get the security, and you sell it to other taxpayers because they can use that security to pay their own taxes. The market discounts the sale often, not a lot of discount, maybe less than 1%. But for sizable refund amounts, we have also seen there's no discount. There's no discount whatsoever. So it's a very liquid market. We have never seen a client having difficulties with selling the security. It's very liquid, and I don't think you should have any problems with that piece. The key is, again, to be prepared, to be mindful of what your deficiencies on your tax returns are before actually claiming the refund, having a good advisor with yourself in terms to preparing for the refund claim, the audit, etc., is also crucial. Don't do it alone. Go to your advisor, come to PwC, but don't do it alone because they're not gonna make it easy for you. The system works anyway. So apologies for the long speech, Natalia. But I think this is the last piece of the presentation today. We're just gonna open the floor for questions, and before we close the session.
Okay, if anyone have a questions, and now you can ask Carlos Miguel and Natalia, or you can write in the chat. 我们有问题吗？有人有问题没有？我看到那个你有一个问题是吧 ？Okay, here I saw a chat in the chat. There's Louis Lee have a question, and he said he want to consult you about Colombia overseas remittance and shareholder in dividends. This question, right? Louis Lee, 可以听到吗 ？Hello? Okay. Okay.
What was the
So-
question, Emilia?
His question is he want to consult you about the Colombia overseas remittance and the shareholder dividend, dividends.
Oh, okay. Well, today, as the law is written, dividend remitted out of Colombia, dividends attract withholding tax at 10%. And again, we don't have a tax treaty with China like with other countries. So if the dividend is going to China or to Hong Kong, then it's just 10%, the withholding tax. If you are distributing profits that date back to 2016 and before, retained profits, then there may not be withholding tax at all under certain grandfathering rules. Some treaties, some tax treaties, and this is what takes me back to my comment before. Having the right holding structure over Colombia is important. Some tax treaties, like Spain, they reduce the withholding tax to zero, the 10%. The Switzerland Colombia with a tax treaty does the same. Some others are not so generous. They reduce the 10% to 5%, etc. But having a tax treaty is important, as I mentioned before. And one last comment there. As you distribute dividends and remit dividends out of Colombia, check if the profits were already taxed at the entity level here. If they were not taxed, for some reason or another, you have a tax benefit, or for some reason or another, in addition to the 10%, there may be another tax, which we call equalization tax, which is very expensive. So companies distributing dividends really need to do an exercise. What years the profits date back to, number one. Number two, did those profits pay income tax in Colombia at the entity level, fully, partly, etc.? That kind of exercise is absolutely critical, so you can know how to treat the remittance from a dividend tax perspective now. So I think that's my answer. Any more questions, Emilia?
So far, let me say, I will ask again. 我们还有问题没有啊？对于刚才就是今天的topic，然后大家有没有疑问的，或者是有想再问那个 Carlos Miguel，然后有哪些问题可能大家不清楚的啊？然后希望大家可以积极的发问，然后也可以借助这个机会，然后可以问向我们的那个税务专家。If anyone have a questions? 还有没有问题的？还有没有问题有需要问的？I didn't see the chat. Some people write it and did anyone have questions? 如果有问题的话，我希望大家可以借助这个机会啊，因为我们的税务专家他们今天正好有时间可以借助这个机会可以问他们。Okay, Louis Lee. Okay, Louis Lee, sorry, she said she didn't understand before. Okay, how about later? Later, I will, if you can, Louis Lee, you can write me your email. Later, I can send the email to you. Okay. 我们再给一下其他人机会。We can give other people the chance if they have more questions. 其他人还有没有机会？大家可以积极的发言啊，不要害羞，不要不好意思。Any questions? I think
Okay.
people a little bit shy here. Okay, so if people don't have questions, and so our meeting will be here today. I'm very thank you very much for everyone come here to join our event today.
Emilia, there is a question from a guy that is saying, do you have a draft decree detail for withholding tax rates will raise to how many %?
Oh, I didn't see the question here. I don't know.
Yeah, Natalia, you may be able to pull up the regulation on the withholding tax, but some of the proposals are that today's rate, 0.40%, goes up to 0.80%, and what is today 0.80, I think it's going to double to 1.6. It's a draft regulation. Anyone, Natalia, I'm not sure if you are still on. Anyone who wants to see the regulation, please reach out to Emilia or Natalia, and we will be happy to give you a copy. It's a draft still, not yet final. So we'll be happy to share the copy.
We can include like a link to the draft in the presentation that we're going to share with everybody.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. And yeah.
Yeah, I think good idea. Later we can share our presentation to everyone, send to your emails, also put the link. And okay, if we don't have questions, I think we will be finished here. I want to thank you for everyone joining our meeting today, and also thank you for Carlos, Miguel, and Natalia for your time. And we hope we are gonna organize another event soon for the new update of some more new development. And if you have any questions, we in the first presentation have our contacts, and later we're gonna send this presentation to you, and you can send our emails, or you can contact me directly. I will be in charge China desk, or you can add me WeChat, whatever. And yeah, I would like to thank you for everyone. So I will see you guys soon for the next our online meeting. Okay. Thank you, Carlos, Miguel. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
And
Emilia, and
Danny,
everybody.
thank you very much.
Thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Listo.